Welcome back, guys. Alright, so we're gonna now flip to the front view of the skull, and I just changed my pencil from a 2B to a 4B. Now, when I was on my break from the last drawing, what I did is, I think I showed this in another video, but I'll kind of re-show it in case you guys need a refresher, but you just get a utility knife, and then you want to get your, you want to grab the utility knife. You want to kind of have like a fist around your pencil. Have your thumb in the back like this, and put your thumb underneath the blade, and then just push up with your thumb slightly and gently so you don't damage the lead. And then push up and spin. So you want to kind of spin it so you're getting an even amount on all around the pencil. So you're just kind of doing this 360 degrees around the pencil, and it's just a continuous push up and then spin it to the next side, push up, spin to the next side. And then if you have sandpaper, you can rub this against to get really soft. And we just basically do this just to be able to kind of expand our mark making, so we're able to make a sharp point if we need to. But if we want to, for the mostly the beginning, we want to be kind of using the side, so we get that big sweeping brush stroke, almost like a painting. And also I'm using this Staedtler pencil holder extender thing, which allows me to kind of extend my drawing, gives me an extension basically, so I can kind of stand back slightly while I'm drawing. So let's get back into the actual drawing here. I'm just going to rub this down here on the sandpaper. Just trying to soften out the lead, because it might have some hard spots in it, some rough spots. Now what you'll notice is, the 4B is going to come in a little bit more aggressive. Well, before we do that, we should turn our skull back to the 3/4 view. Now you might get like a little bit afraid because you're like, oh, well, if we're changing the skull and we have to keep rotating it, it's like, well, what if I don't put it in the exact position? Well, if you keep your drawings loose enough, you won't have to worry about that. So it's kind of like training you for, like, if you were drawing a live model and this was a real person and they were living, they would slightly actually not, like, they're not going to always go right back into position. And so it kind of teaches you to sort of deal with that aspect of it. So what I'm doing here is I'm just, since now I have this darker pencil, I know I can push the my values a bit deeper than with the 2B. But I also know that with this great power of the range of this pencil, I know I have to kind of be careful with that as well, because it can get too dark in areas where I don't want it to get dark. But if I know where the areas are going to get really dark, then I don't have to be as cautious in those areas. But the more we push these areas that are dark, we're going to be able to extend our range in the light areas, which we haven't touched yet, which are all these kind of blank white areas that will, eventually get formed as well. So there's kind of going to be like two values in the shadow. We're going to keep them, the shadow is going to always be sort of simple. There's going to be like just these dark pockets of like accents, and then there's just going to be the main overall shadow pattern. So right now I'm just kind of almost brushing over a stain, kind of hatching over a stain over the whole thing. But as you can see, it's already getting pretty dark already. So putting in this dark pocket in between the teeth and the jaw, kind of like this hole sort of peeking, so you kind of see in the background, sort of create that dark pocket. Then I'm starting to throw in a pretty dark, probably the darkest value that I'll put is this background, because this skull is going to be, you know, it's going to be pretty light in value versus that background. So I know I can kind of push this background pretty dark. So that might be a thing that I kind of, you know, it takes a little while to cover, but if you're using the side of the pencil, that's where the side of the pencil really helps, because it allows you to put in these kind of broad strokes, almost like a paintbrush. They're almost, you know, they're very broad. But I'm using, as you can see, the side of this pencil. Like, you have this whole side that you can run against the paper and create these really broad marks here, or strokes. And we really are kind of going into a painterly approach here, or a mass-oriented approach, which, you know, is like a painterly approach. So I'm kind of, you know, refining this cranium a bit on the, you know, refining contours, not just putting in the background value for, you know, for the hell of it, but also using it as a drawing tool to kind of refine those contours of the outside of the skull. It allows you to kind of loosen up and be a little bit kind of expressive with your mark making as well. And just keeps you in that loose frame of mind. So I'm kind of darkening this eye socket, darkening this superciliary crest a little bit. And I want to stand back now. So that's really important, you know, constantly be standing back, especially in this early stage of the process where we're still kind of debating and questioning things. And just, you know, really stand back and observe, and, you know, find your next, you know, challenge that you're going to take on, or thing to correct, you know. Like, I really feel like putting this background in is, as much as it's not really doing anything in here, it's helping me to just get it, it's helping me to see that overall skull in an atmosphere. But it's also kind of giving me this out toward contour of the skull, so it's, but it's, all this is very laborious part of the process, which is like I've heard it called like the ditch digging part from somewhere, you know. We hear all these, nothing's really, I guess originally, like, we like to say that we said this or they said that, but everything's been said and kind of done, so I don't like to, you know, by quote or, you know, say who said this and that, but it's, you know, it's a good way to think about it, like the kind of ditch digging of the drawing or the painting. So as you can see, it's kind of getting a little bit, you know, fuzzy in certain areas or lost. But that just means we're going towards, you know, what reality is presenting us, where, you know, there's these fuzzy edges, but then there's these sharp light spots that are giving us these kind of harder edges. So just kind of building, you know, that nest of value around this skull. Kind of creating like this atmospheric container for the skull. You know, on each pass you go over, it kind of gets richer and darker and more refined. Because we don't want the white paper really kind of gets in the way, so sometimes it's good to actually start out with a toned piece of paper. Takes away some of this sort of ditch digging part, but it doesn't really matter, you can do it either way. And you know, this could be a scary part for some of you and somewhat for me, because you feel like you're kind of losing part of the drawing. Feel like it's getting away from you. But we don't really want to have we don't want to have some drawing that we can't move around, so it's good that it's this way, where it's sort of messy, and that we can it gives us time to process what we're looking at, rather than just going in full blaze, putting in every little thing, and then by the time we go to kind of render it and polish it off, we're noticing all these structural things that just aren't right. So it's better to, you know, go in this fashion than the other. So as you can see, I got sort of that shape for the superciliary crest. I'm just kind of blocking it in with somewhat of a false value. Now we're at the 15-minute mark. We're going to go to the 30. Stick with that. I know we went with 15 the last time, but that was just because we were finishing up a session that we did yesterday on that 3/4 view. So yeah, this phase is, I feel like I'm just throwing in a lot of the background information, just kind of constantly hatching with a really fast and energetic approach, as you can see. And when you do have this kind of extended pencil, it really helps with being able to get these broad background tones in to kind of help you sort of carve out the general shape of the skull. There's a lot to be said with, you know, this kind of outside contour shape, because it really, if you can kind of get that right, it really can say a lot about the character, you know. But there's also, you know, the inside information is just as important, but we really can, as humans, sort of identify with very little information, so we kind of can tell what something is without every little detail being shown. It's just kind of interesting when you think about it. So yeah, this eye socket right here is probably the darkest area we have. So I'm really gonna try to not necessarily go pitch black. You never want to just go pitch black. It's more of a, you want to go with like a build up, so you can kind of slowly, you know, you can only, it's harder to take away something really dark. Rather, it's better to kind of slowly build up these areas in time. So as you can see, I kind of really made that sort of a darker tone there. And it might even be good to start, you know, kind of, you can sometimes put get like a paintbrush that's clean. You don't want to obviously use something that's dirty, even if it's like clean the paint. You want to just have a brush that you use for drawing, or you can use these sponge, I really like these microfiber sponge brushes. They're for like cleaning camera lenses. And you know, you can buy like a whole pack. I bought this like whole pack for pretty cheap. I don't know, it was like maybe 20 or 15 bucks. Which you know, and it's just like one of these, and this can really kind of speed up the drawing process and get you a little bit faster. It's kind of a, I don't know, it's kind of like a cheat, but it gets you there a little bit quicker. I don't like to, I would say like try to use this with a purpose and not just to kind of as a cheap trick. I'm just using this really to, I'm using it to refine my outside contour, but also kind of push in some of these values on this value block and on the outside to kind of smooth it down, to kind of get it to a more air-like quality and less grainy and hatchy, because I don't want the background to compete with the you know, the detail of the actual, where all the information is, you know. I don't want this to be too noisy, so that's the purpose that I'm using this for. But I'm not just gonna go and use this every little, you know. So every time you use a certain tool, like, kind of ask yourself why you're using it, and you know what you're gonna use it for, and are you doing it with purpose. So as you can see, that kind of, you know, helped sort of give me a darker background. And then what you can do is you can kind of go on top with the pencil and sort of get even darker, but it's not as grainy, like it just kind of layers on top. So I say we stand back at this point. We're at the 20-minute mark. So maybe we can, on this next 10 minutes, we can kind of go in more to the actual inside of the skull and less on the outside. So I think a good plate, like these, we really want to pick out sort of these dark areas first, because they're kind of these really things that kind of stick out the most. So like this, these eye sockets and these nasal cavities. So anything that's very like cavernous and dark, we're trying to. So as you could see, they kind of stick forward, and the shadow, but then there's still these parts that are in shadow, but they're just not as deep and recessed as, these things are like these cavernous values that are kind of sunk back. They're like these holes in the skull, or cave like that are really sitting deep back within the skull. So as you can see, it just got like really like a lot darker. But we also don't want the general shadow value to get too light. Like we want that to be kind of close to where this is, but not, it's still, those dark accents still jump further than the general shadow mass. And we'll step back. And so you might want to maybe get the blending utensil or softening utensil, and just kind of, again, do it. Don't just go like all over the place with it. Sort of, do it with a purpose. Sort of shape out the eye socket while you're doing it. Keep it somewhat loose still, but follow that superciliary crest like a big chunk. Like push it around like you would charcoal, and then push up and inward for this eye socket, and then maybe down here where that jawline is. So as you can see, it's starting to get sort of this, just a little bit darker accents in here. And then you can kind of go back over that with the pencil, and it kind of gets it even darker. So as you can see, we're just kind of slowly building up these darker structures here of these eye sockets. So look how, see how dark that is. But then that also tells us, like, okay, now, my background value's got to get, pretty dark as well. And I got to, so you'll notice, like, once you put in one value, like, all these values are just kind of placeholders. They aren't set in stone yet. They're there to help us navigate sort of the drawing. At this stage, we're more so drawing rather than trying to turn form. We're drawing with these values and not necessarily turning the form yet with them, which that will happen, but it's not in this stage yet. But as you can see, we have a very kind of airy-esque skull. If that's a word. I just made it up. But yeah, we want that kind of dreamy, sort of romantic, kind of dramatic, sort of ghostly, any kind of word. It really does help to kind of have a vocabulary for these things, because it just, I think that's kind of how our brain works to sort of get this into our kind of subconscious. And so you could see, like, some, like the proportions aren't quite there, but at least I know that I can push, I can pull, I have total control of this. Now, if I was too tight in the beginning, I wouldn't have as much control. Now, we think, like, as tight, if I was really tight, I would have all the control in the world, but really, control comes when you have a looseness to something, when you're loose. So it's kind of like, when you lose control, you gain it, sort of like, but really you're in control when it's looser, because you have more options and you see broader and you have more possibilities. So it's sometimes hard to let go of that, obviously, but it's really quite important. So keeping it kind of broad and light and flexible, and playful. This is the play stage. So obviously this eye socket's getting a little, so I just nudge it around, just like if it was some paint, But we're really kind of starting to get into some fun stuff here, Just trying to see the shadows. Starting to throw down some hatch marks here. And the paper I'm using is Strathmore 500, and it's plate, so it's really smooth. So I kind of prefer the vellum. I just accidentally ordered this one, but either one are good. But this is a little bit too smooth. But I prefer the vellum. But these papers are really they're strong as hell. Like, they can take a lot of wear and tear. So that's why I like using them. But you can use you can use cheaper papers. It's just, it depends what stage you are and what skill level you are. Like, if you're early on, you might just want to use, you could use like a general, there's still a lot of good papers for not that much money. But you can always buy a bunch of these sheets for like not that much. Or you can buy, they have rolls of paper, which I just got one of them, and they come they're not too much. I mean, it depends on your budget, it depends. But yeah, depends how much, you're gonna spend, how serious you are about this stuff too. If it's just a hobby, then, it doesn't really matter what kind of paper, but if you're kind of, eventually going to be doing this for a living, it's kind of good to get used to, these materials. The materials, there's this whole thing that, materials don't matter, you should be able to do it, but they do make it somewhat easier. It's like, would you rather be drawn on cardboard, or would you rather be drawn on, like, paper? It's like, there's, slight differences that make it a lot easier on yourself. So we're at the 30-minute mark. I'm pretty happy where we're leaving off at this point. Maybe I'm just gonna, just to remember this, I just want to kind of really note in this downward facing plane is a superciliary crest here. That sort of light and shadow on that side just keeps, so this whole thing kind of merges. And then maybe, so I'm kind of getting carried away here. So I'm going to stop here because I don't want this video to go too long and lose you guys here. But as you can see, it's almost like the camera doesn't pick up the, it's not as sharp on the camera like the drawing, because the way I'm approaching it's very fuzzy and hatchy and ghostly, so that's kind of a good sign. But I'm going to sign out and check out the other videos, subscribe, you know, comment, it's all free, and just keep on drawing, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.